From Asia, I received a story unlike any other, of a man so obsessed, so mad in love, that he tried to resurrect his dead wife. This chilling tale was given to me by Noreen, the woman who once loved this mad murderer. They say when a righteous soul leaves this world, the skies open and it rains. How true is this saying? No one really knows, but today a soul had departed, and the rain was falling too, only it wasn't falling. It was raging, pouring down with such fury, as if a storm was about to strike, or perhaps it already had. A suffocating darkness covered everything. By early evening, people had locked themselves inside their homes. The streets were utterly deserted. Only when lightning cracked across the sky did the darkness fade for a few seconds, revealing the wet and empty roads. The thunder roared like an angry beast, and in that stormy night, was this really the right time for such a task? So late, in such weather, when no human nor soul was in sight? Farhad had been driving for what felt like forever. His mind wasn't working anymore. Where was he supposed to go? Whom was he supposed to meet? Finally, exhausted, he stopped the car in front of the graveyard. He leaned his head against the steering wheel, drained. For 3 months, he had dreaded this very moment. And now it had come and gone. She was gone, dead. And yet he was still alive. What hadn't they dreamed together? Where would they travel? How would they decorate their home? What life they would build? Dreams never all come true. But such a cruel ending, such a horrific twist. Her wedding dress, their new furniture, the honeymoon tickets. They had chosen everything together, but fate had written nothing for her, poor soul. And today he was out to choose the final thing for her, her last resting place. What a strange fate, isn't it? For a long time he just sat in the car, staring at the graveyard gates, drowning in madness. His heart felt like it was going to burst. Since morning, not a single tear had escaped his eyes. The grief was too heavy. It had frozen his soul. They say you can't die with the dead. But if it were in his hands, he would gladly have worn her shroud and laid down beside her. That's how his love was, fierce, unbearable, tearing him apart. How was he supposed to live now? And even if he did, what for? The graveyard gate stood open. Inside, pitch darkness. The rain kept pouring like madness. Only flashes of lightning revealed glimpses of what lay within. Sights so chilling that anyone who truly stared for a moment would tremble and repent of their sins. But who really repents? And tonight, the graveyard was not empty. Deep inside, in a crumbling old grave, someone else was already there. Because of the storm, there was no guard, no gravedigger, and that was perfect. The night he had been waiting for had finally arrived. After months of rituals, pain, and preparation, his goal was finally within reach. He wasn't new to this path. He had been walking the dark road of devil worship for years. His knowledge had already told him about the man outside, sitting broken in his car. A man in such pain, pain so raw that he would pay any price for relief, even the highest price. The healer asked, "How long this disease?" The heart replied, "Since love's first release." Farhad, too, had been in love since childhood. A fierce, burning love. Romila was his aunt's daughter, her only daughter. Romila was the only reason her mother stayed alive. And slowly, she became the only reason for Farhad's life, too. The only blessing in Romila's life was true love. Poor aunt. Who knows with what black ink her fate had been written. Only a few years after marriage, she became a widow, left with nothing but a little daughter in her arms, and came to live at her brother's house. Farhad's mother never got along with anyone, not even with her own husband. How could she ever get along with her widowed sister-in-law? She could hardly bear her presence. Even though the poor woman slowly took over all the household chores, she remained unwanted. Farhad's passionate love for Romila could not remain hidden from his mother. Of course, she expressed deep disapproval. She had barely tolerated her sister-in-law living under her roof all these years. How could she possibly imagine Romila, raised on her scraps, becoming her son's bride? If it hadn't been for her fear of Farhad's father, she would have thrown both mother and daughter out of the house long ago. But his father had no objection to the bond or to his son's choice. Having failed from that side, the mother changed her tactics. She began setting impossible conditions. She told Farhad clearly, "This nonsense of love makes a man useless. If he wanted Romila, he must first complete his education and become a doctor. Only then would she accept very name gave him extra resolve. And what mountain did he have to move? He only had to become a doctor. And through day and night of hard work, he did. But the story had many twists to come. Suddenly, his aunt was diagnosed with cancer. Within no time, she left this world and its suffering behind. Romila was devastated, but Farhad's love gave her the courage to live and to wait. A few years after the aunt's death, Farhad's father too passed away, following his sister. Now, the mother had a free hand. She treated Romila with cruelty. She had no intention whatsoever of making this helpless, ordinary girl her daughter-in-law. What on earth does Farhad even see in Romila? She would often wonder in disbelief. But was that question anything new? Since the beginning of the world, it has been asked thousands of times. What did Majnun see in Layla? Who has ever been able to answer? Whether or not Romila had any fortune written for her, one thing was certain. True love had been written into her fate. A love pure and unshakable. Farhad finished his MBBS, then completed his house job as well. But once again, his mother went back on her word. Now she demanded he go abroad for FRCS before marriage. But this time, Farhad became stubborn. Perhaps he was not desperate to marry instantly, but he could no longer bear the way his mother and his sister Nimra treated Romila with increasing cruelty each day. His nature and upbringing would never allow him to misbehave with his mother and sister, or openly oppose them. So he wished instead to gain the legal right to protect Romila from every hardship and to keep her happy. But who can escape the pain written by fate? Romila, who already resembled her mother, was struck by the same disease, cancer, and this time, at the very last stage. Farhad could not believe his ears. His mother could not believe her fate. She completely ignored Farhad's torment and Romila's unbearable suffering. The doctors gave her only a few months of life, and in that very time, Farhad's mother fixed his engagement to Nimra's sister-in-law. Of course, Farhad protested strongly, but his mother had a famous saying ready, "The dead cannot be followed into the grave." "Mother, Millie is still alive. If I have to give my own life to save her, I will. And if, God forbid, she doesn't survive, then I will never marry. Never, ever." Farhad's tone was unshakable. His mother shot him a furious glare, and the very next day she angrily shifted her belongings to Nimra Baji's house. Nimra, in fact, was deeply eager to see her brother married to her sister-in-law. Their mother's decision thrilled her, but destiny, too, had its own verdict. Millie passed away. Farhad could not save her, nor could he sacrifice himself for her. All he could do was accompany her to her final resting place on that stormy, terrifying night. With his head resting against the car seat, Farhad didn't know whether he had fallen asleep or simply fainted for a while. He stood outside for some time watching. The mysterious smile on his lips deepened, like a hunter who knows with certainty his prey cannot escape. He tapped lightly on the window. Farhad jolted awake. "What's the matter? Who are you? This place is not meant for sleeping, nor is this the right time," the stranger replied with a smile. "What's it to you? Is this your father's road?" Farhad snapped, frustrated. "This road doesn't belong to your father either, mister. You look miserable, like who's died?" "I said it's none of your business. Get lost." Farhad was irritated. "If anyone can make it your business tonight, it's me, mister." "Try me." The stranger's tone grew serious. "What do you want?" Farhad asked, unsettled by his manner. "This place isn't right for such talk, mister." The smile returned. "Come with me. Every desire of yours can be fulfilled. It just needs a little courage." How eerie that house was, if one could even call it a house. The graveyard outside had seemed less frightening than this dingy junkyard. Half darkness swallowed everything, save for a lantern swinging on the wall. A filthy rug lay on the ground where Farhad and the man sat. Cats prowled freely about. Dirty dishes lay scattered. The walls oozed dread and misfortune. Farhad's numbed mind, still clouded from grief, slowly began to work again. His eyes caught something in the corner, and his heart pounded. A grotesque, hideous idol sat on a table, surrounded by withered flowers. Alarmed, Farhad looked back at the man. "Who are you? Why have you brought me here? Have you really lived your whole life without realizing who I am, mister?" The man's smile turned grotesque. "Have you spent your entire existence in love?" Farhad staggered, as though struck. "How do you know?" "I know a great deal, and what I don't know, you will tell me." He locked his eyes onto Farhad's. A strange pull radiated from those eyes. Farhad felt himself slipping into My Millie is gone, left me forever. His dry eyes brimmed with tears. What will I do now? How will I live? Telling the story from the beginning, Farhad had finally broken down into sobs. "What price can you pay for your beloved's life?" "What do you mean?" Farhad recoiled, glaring at the man through tear-filled eyes. "What are you willing to do to bring Millie back? Are you mad? Millie is dead. It's been hours since she left this world." Farhad was agitated. "Mister, first place the wager, then play the cards," the man insisted. "I don't understand your nonsense, but I can give my life for Millie." Farhad was exhausted of arguing. "Your Millie can return. She can rise again. But you don't have to give your life. You have to take a life. Do you accept?" Thunder roared violently. A massive crash followed. Lightning had struck somewhere, and Farhad agreed. The wall clock chimed 2. Farhad shut the file in front of him. For so long, he had been pointlessly flipping its pages. He rose from his chair and left the room. Visiting hours had ended at midnight. The hospital was shrouded in silence, complete silence. Patients lay asleep in their beds. Nurses were gathered in the staff room, as was their routine at night. Farhad crept down the stairs, his footsteps muted, until he reached the morgue. He peeked in. The guard's chair was empty. He sighed in relief. The guard often sneaked away to nap inside. After all, corpses weren't going to run anywhere. Farhad slipped inside the morgue. A few unfortunate, unclaimed bodies lay on stretchers. Avoiding their sight, he walked to the farthest bed. Gently, he lifted the sheet from the face. "Romila." His lips trembled. "Millie, my love, I will bring you back. At any cost, what price can be set on life itself? To win back love, mankind has always paid in blood. Land, women, and beauty have demanded sacrifices of countless lives. But this bargain was unlike any other. For here, the face, though beautiful, had departed this world, and to summon it back, 3 living souls would have to be sent to death. Love was dead, and the price of resurrection was 3 lives. Farhad lay staring at the ceiling, a voice echoing in his ears. "If you want your Millie back, breathing, smiling, alive, you must kill 3 human beings, 3 lives for the price of your love. With each life you take, Romila's soul will return, and when the last one dies, your beloved will rise." "I accept," Farhad whispered. That night, instead of buying Millie a grave, he shifted her body into the hospital morgue. Being a doctor made this part easy, but the path ahead was anything but easy. Dark, twisted, impossible. Yet when has love ever surrendered? The night of the new moon had returned. A familiar fear gripped him, like the first day of school, the first job interview, and tonight, the first kill. His first target he had chosen long ago. Being a government hospital, many abandoned patients lay under treatment. One of them was Lady Nasima. Her condition had worsened for weeks, and no one ever came to visit her. Farhad restlessly awaited the appointed night, the last date of the lunar month. When the clock struck 2, he rose. From his coat pocket, he drew out a syringe. The bulb's glow lit his cold face. He filled it carefully. His mind was blank. He thought nothing of what he was doing, or the sin he was about to commit. Visiting hours were long over. The staff on duty was sluggish, heavy with sleep. Farhad padded quietly across the ground floor, then climbed to the first floor. In the corner bed of the general ward lay Nasima, an old lady, sleeping soundly. The ward was nearly empty, save for 2 other patients, who too were deep in slumber. He had ensured it. Today their medicine had carried a heavy dose of sedative. It took only seconds for Farhad to press the syringe into Nasima's arm. Already teetering on death's edge, she slipped away silently, without resistance. No one knew what hour of the night it was, because it was the last phase of the moon. The paths had become completely dark. A peculiar eeriness hung over the atmosphere. Cats, for some unknown reason, were making hideous sounds, as if they were mourning. In the corner of his haunted house, seated before an idol in a strange posture with his eyes closed, Jeevan Daas suddenly opened his eyes. A loud explosion had occurred. A scream filled with agony echoed. A woman's scream. A demonic smile spread across Jeevan Daas's face. Ah, bravo, splendid work. Because of Farhad's merciless injection, a few drops of blood had trickled from the arm of poor, aged, frail Nasima. Farhad carefully collected that blood on his finger and hurried down the stairs toward the mortuary. In the end, sinful people suffer accidents or paralysis and repent, living a completely changed life. In the same way, Farhad, who had once lived a clean and decent life, was now trapped in the grip of the devil, moving cunningly like a serial killer. As usual, the guard's chair placed outside the mortuary was empty. Reaching Romila's corpse, Farhad removed the white sheet from her face and, with the blood on his finger, marked a tilak on her cold forehead. Mr. Anwar was not too old, but unfortunately very weak. Because of worsening typhoid, he had to be admitted to the hospital. His wife had already passed away. His 2 innocent little daughters stayed with him throughout the day, but at night he would force them to go home. The poor girls anxiously prayed for their beloved father's recovery and waited for him to return home. And Farhad, under the last phase of the moon, was time never stops, and the last phase of the moon finally arrived. The same routine, the same staff on duty, and the same madness of Farhad. After making an agreement with Jeevan Daas, Farhad had permanently switched himself to night duty. For killing? The true pleasure lies only in the night. The bulb's light fell directly on Farhad's face. He pulled on thick rubber gloves over his hands and slowly stepped out of the room. Mr. Anwar was admitted in a private room. The nurse had already given him medicine, and he was fast asleep. Farhad stood close by, watching him for a few moments. Perhaps because of the heat of his gaze, Mr. Anwar's eyes opened. Seeing the familiar, kind Dr. Farhad standing beside him, a faint smile spread across his weak lips. Doctor? No one knows what he was about to say, when Farhad's strong hand clamped tightly over his mouth. Forever, love is love. Who can measure whose love holds more strength, more madness? Did Mr. Anwar's innocent little daughters not love their father, who was their only support in this world? Nasima had no one in this world, but she had Allah, and Allah loves more than 70 mothers combined. Who gave Farhad the right to roam about dropping corpses in pursuit of his love, to interfere in the works of Allah? And who can interfere in the works of Allah? Who can dare stand against his decisions? No one. Once again, Farhad stood before Romila's corpse, staring fixedly at her face. 2 murders had been committed, but Romila remained lifeless. Her face itself testified that she had long departed this world. A deep bluish tinge had appeared on her lips. Romila, open your eyes. Farhad cried out involuntarily. What are you doing here? A voice suddenly rang out in the completely silent room. Farhad was startled. He turned around. Sir, you... in the morgue at this hour? Nurse Noreen asked in shock. It took Farhad a few seconds to compose himself. Yes, where is the guard? I came to check on him. He made his tone stern. Sir, I think he... Noreen suddenly grew nervous. He's been reported many times. At night, he slips into a room and goes to sleep. And where is your duty at this time? Farhad asked. Sir, I was doing my rounds, saw the morgue door open, so I came inside. Farhad realized his mistake. He had entered without closing the door. I too came inside, seeing the door open. Anyway, everything is fine. You may continue your rounds. Once again, it was that same mysterious, terrifying room. Today, its ominous aura and stench seemed even heavier. Jeevan Daas's face looked even more hideous. You said that as I killed people, life would begin to return to Romila. But there's been no change in her. Instead, her corpse is starting to decay. Farhad glared at him. Jeevan Daas showed no concern at Farhad's anger. I did say that, and it will happen. But mister, I never said you should only kill those who already had 1 foot in the grave. Now, the final sacrifice must be of young blood. Absolutely young blood. Young? Where am I supposed to bring a young person to kill? Do you take me for some habitual murderer? Farhad's rage was mounting. Mister, that's something you should have thought of before making the pact. Back then, you were ready to shake the entire world. What now? Has the ghost of love vanished in just 2 months? Jeevan Daas himself looked no less than a ghost. Enough of your nonsense, Farhad snapped, the taunt unbearable. What do you think, mister, that I'm not suffering myself? From that moment till now, I haven't closed my eyes for a single night. I've been performing a harsh ritual before the goddess. If you falter even slightly now, if the smallest mistake occurs, the entire game will collapse. Doomsday will descend. The blood-red eyes of Jeevan Daas testified that he wasn't lying, that he had been awake for God knows how long. Fine, but if after the 3rd murder, Romila still doesn't return to life, then I will commit a 4th murder, and that one will be yours. Jeevan Daas's laughter was utterly natural. Ha 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 ha. He kept laughing, but for a different reason. Mister, Romila will awaken. She will awaken for sure. But you must commit the final murder, that of a young person. My goddess demands a sacrifice of youthful blood, hot blood. Romila will live again, but she will not be yours. She will be mine. She will serve me. She will do everything I command her to. Mister, you are nothing more than a pawn. I will rule this world. I will not remain Jeevan in name alone. I will truly grant life to the dead. Seated inside that broken, cursed grave, Jeevan Daas was performing a vile, dark ritual. The ritual had to be completed at the exact moment Farhad carried out the final murder. The goddess of Jeevan Daas would receive the offering she desired, and he would gain limitless demonic powers capable of every dark deed. Inside the grave, he laughed in anticipation of the glorious time to come. In his mind's eye, he could already see the dead rising from their graves all around him. Sister Noreen had put a full stop to the search for Farhad. She had come from a village and was living in the hospital hostel. She was still very young, just as Jeevan Daas had instructed. Farhad opened the door of his house. Noreen stepped in, hesitating. Dusky and pretty, her youthful charm made her look even more beautiful that moment. Farhad scanned her from head to toe. Noreen misunderstood the meaning of his gaze and blushed. If one thought about it, there wasn't really a problem. Never would be. Romila was a girl, and so was Noreen. Romila had long been dead, while Noreen stood before him, alive, breathing. There was no need for any sacrifice. Noreen was ready, body and soul, to become Farhad's life partner. Not just this life, but for 7 lifetimes. She would have served him with devotion, without even needing a signal. But not everyone follows the saying, if not you, then someone else. Farhad certainly didn't. How many dreams had Noreen built in her eyes from last night till now, when Farhad, expressing his liking, had invited her to his house to discuss the rest of the matters. After all, such things couldn't be talked about inside a hospital. He had strictly instructed her to keep it secret. Not a soul should find out. In just 24 hours, the poor girl had imagined so much: engagement ring designs, the color of her wedding dress, even possible names for her future children. She could hardly believe her luck. But today, she was about to receive a shock far bigger than any misunderstanding. Farhad seated her in the drawing room and went to make tea. After waiting a while, feeling a little romantic, Noreen decided to join him in the kitchen to make tea together. Just like a handsome Dracula whose charming smile suddenly reveals sharp fangs, Farhad, filling a syringe with poison, looked terrifying and unrecognizable. Being a nurse, Noreen instantly recognized the lethal injection, killing middle-aged, weak, sleeping people like Nasima and Anwar. was one thing, simple and easy. But Noreen gave him a tough time. For quite a while, the two of them ran around like a cat and mouse chase. At last, poor Noreen stumbled and fell. Farhad was panting heavily. With trembling hands, he tried to inject the poison, while Noreen fought for her life. She resisted fiercely, but at last, Farhad managed to drive the needle into her arm. But poor Farhad, he wasn't a murder expert. He was panicked, and destiny had other plans. Once again, a storm raged outside. Dragging Noreen with great difficulty, he shoved her into his car and collapsed into the driver's seat. The constant tension had destroyed him. His nerves had broken down completely. Going against the system of nature is never easy. On the way, at a deserted spot he had chosen beforehand, he dumped Noreen's body onto a heap of garbage and drove off again. Farhad couldn't see the road ahead, partly because of the rain, partly because of the endless tears flowing from his eyes. Noreen's parents were poor villagers. She had 2 younger siblings studying in the village school. Having completed her nursing course, she was working here, sending all her salary back home. Her family had high hopes from her. She was their lifeline. And now she lay motionless on the trash heap, rain pouring down on her. When a human is born, their fists are tightly clenched. Noreen's hand was tightly clenched too, holding a syringe, the poison-filled syringe. Because of panic and her fierce struggle, Farhad hadn't been able to fill the syringe completely. Before that, Noreen had already snatched it from him. The amount of poison that entered her veins was too little for Jeevan Daas. Farhad was to commit the last murder tonight, and Jeevan was to offer the final sacrifice to the goddess. That would grant him eternal demonic power. He sat cross-legged before the terrifying idol of the goddess, eyes closed. The room was dim, scattered with human bones he had collected from abandoned graves. Today, beside the idol of the goddess, he had also placed a human skull. Jeevan was deeply engrossed in his ritual. Not a single mistake could be made. The ritual had to be completed. But then, loud thunder roared. A deafening explosion shook the air. Jeevan opened his eyes in panic. Suddenly, a conch shell blew. A dreadful drumbeat echoed. From somewhere came the ominous wail of a Shahnai, like a morning dirge. Jeevan understood everything instantly. "Forgive me, Devi, forgive me," he pleaded with folded hands. But the goddess ignored his prayers and years of devotion. A violent lightning bolt struck directly upon Jeevan Daas. His body burned to ashes instantly, without a funeral pyre. Rain continued to pour over Noreen's body, lying on the trash heap. A flash of lightning blazed. Noreen opened her eyes. She was alive. Farhad stopped his car in front of the hospital. His mind had gone blank. Like a robot, he walked into the mortuary and, as instructed by Jeevan Daas, applied the tilak on Romila's corpse. The mortuary was drowned in silence. The ticking of the wall clock made the atmosphere even more terrifying. Millie's corpse lay motionless as ever. Farhad kept staring at her with desperate hope. Perhaps now her body would stir. Perhaps she would open those beautiful eyes and look at him, smile at him with love. He longed for that smile, but nothing. Not today either. Farhad's eyes grew bloodshot with grief. He felt as if he were falling from a mountain, but slowly, painfully. So, Millie will not wake up, not even after the 3rd murder? A thought pierced his heart. Do I have to go through this agony twice? I had pinned my hope on Romila's return to life. Do I have to suffer her death all over again? No! His legs gave way. He sank to his knees beside Romila's bed. "Millie, open your eyes now. I have done everything for your love." He began to sob. "I have sinned for you. I have taken so many lives for you. I crossed every limit. Such love, if shown to a stone, even the stone would speak. And yet you remain silent. Speak, Millie, for God's sake. I'm dying to hear your voice." He raved like a madman until exhaustion crushed him. Leaning his head against Romila's bed, his nerves finally gave up. He had no strength left to move. Outside, the rain poured madly. Then suddenly, a blast shook the room. Everything trembled as if an earthquake had struck. Farhad's heart pounded so hard he thought it would burst. The white shroud slipped from Romila's body. She rose up like a machine. It was Mealy. Or perhaps it was. She sat stiffly, staring at Farhad with her cold eyes. For months, Farhad had yearned for this moment. His tear-soaked eyes widened in disbelief. What kind of union was this? Futile, hopeless. After staring mercilessly into his eyes for a long moment, she began to raise her right hand. Like a robot, Farhad sat helpless before her, as if in a trance. Millie clutched his neck. Her grip was inhumanly strong. Within minutes, Farhad's life was snuffed out. With a violent jerk, she flung him to the floor. Farhad's empty, lifeless eyes still remained open. They say incomplete knowledge is dangerous, and incomplete rituals, especially dark rituals, are worse. To try and seize God's work, to defy his will, that has always been the way of the devil. The one who creates life and takes it away is only God Almighty. Who is man to claim the power of resurrection? If anyone does, he is surely a servant of Satan. With black magic, he may bind a wandering spirit to a corpse, but he can never truly restore life. Farhad never understood this. The dead never rise again. The night was pitch dark. Rain fell in torrents. The roads lay utterly deserted. On those empty roads, something was walking, a figure wrapped in a white shroud. Only the face was uncovered. Once, perhaps, it had been a beautiful, lovely face, impossible to look away from. But now it could only spread terror, deadly terror. That face carried cruelty, a stony resolve, as though it had sworn to make the world taste its wrath. Farhad's love had taken the lives of two innocent people. Jeevan Daas's madness had destroyed Jeevan Daas himself. Now, how many more heads would Mealy's restless spirit demand before it found peace? No one knew.